When a little boy in a waiter's uniform asked a mysterious woman in red to dance, the whole ballroom laughed quietly until she held his hand and changed his mother's life forever. Stay with us. This story might warm your heart more than you expect. Subscribe to Black Inside 2.0 for more true heart stories of strength, dignity, and inspiration. The hall shimmered like a palace of gold. Chandeliers glowed overhead, reflecting on polished marble floors. The air smelled of roses, expensive perfumes, and quiet judgment. This wasn't just a party, it was the annual gala of one of the most powerful companies in the country, Levington Enterprises. Guests walked in, dressed like royalty. Senators, CEOs, influencers, wealthy families, every step was full of pride. But near the far corner, away from the cameras, away from the fame, a woman named Marjorie Smith tied her apron tighter and carried a tray full of glasses. She wasn't a guest, she was one of the waitresses. Her son, Dante, stood at the back with other staff children who were allowed to stay quietly in the lounge until the event ended. But Dante didn't like sitting still. He admired the shining lights, the music, the elegance. He wanted to see the world his mother served. And then, his eyes caught someone. A lady in a red dress. The woman in red, she stood apart from everyone else, wearing a gown so elegant that every detail looked handmade. Her hair fell like soft gold against the bright red fabric. She smiled kindly at anyone who greeted her, yet there was something quiet about her, something thoughtful, almost familiar. But unlike the others, she didn't look down at the staff. She looked at them as equals. Dante whispered to himself, "She looks kind." His mother hurried over and whispered, "Stay here, Dante. Don't bother anyone." But Dante's curiosity was stronger than his fear. The question that silenced the room. When the music changed into a soft ballroom melody, couples moved toward the dance floor. Dante stepped forward, courage growing with each breath. His shoes tapped nervously, but he kept walking until he reached her. Everyone lifted their eyebrows. A kid from the staff, at this gala, approaching her. Then Dante looked right into her eyes and said the words that made the entire hall freeze. "Greater than, will you dance with me?" A few people laughed quietly. Someone whispered, "Who let that child come here?" But the woman in red didn't laugh. She gently bent down and smiled. "Greater than, it would be an honor." She placed her hand in his, like they were equals. Like no one else mattered. The room fell silent, the dance that changed everything. The two stepped onto the dance floor. Dante was small, nervous, but she guided him gently, gracefully. People stared, confused, shocked, curious. Marjorie stood frozen near the tables, tray shaking in her hand. Tears formed in her eyes. Her son wasn't meant to be seen, not here. She knew how people judged. She knew how people measured worth. But instead of scolding him, she saw someone lifting him up. And that changed her tears from fear to gratitude. When the last note of the melody ended, the woman knelt again to Dante and whispered loud enough for others to hear. "Greater than, thank you for asking me. You reminded me of something I lost long ago." The event host suddenly approached the microphone. "Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome our CEO and founder of Levington Enterprises, Miss Evelyn Brooks." The woman in red stepped forward. Gasps filled the room. She was the CEO, the owner, the leader of the entire empire. Yet she had just danced with the son of a waitress. Evelyn took the stage, and she wasn't just smiling, she was emotional. "I wasn't born into wealth," Evelyn began. "I grew up with a single mother, who cleaned buildings at night and served food during the day. She still wore her apron when she read me bedtime stories. She never complained, not once. She taught me that dignity doesn't come from money. It comes from effort." The crowd grew quiet. "I met this young man tonight," she said, pointing toward Dante. "He looked at me the way I once looked at the world, without fear, without judgment, just with hope." Marjorie dropped the tray and covered her mouth, tears flowing freely. Evelyn turned toward her. "Ma'am, would you please join me here?" The guest stepped aside, shocked. Marjorie walked slowly, trembling, as if the marble floor might disappear under her feet. Evelyn looked at her and said, "You remind me of my mother, and I would be honored if you would join our team full-time, not just as staff, but as head of community operations with benefits for you and your son." The hall erupted into applause. Marjorie cried openly as she hugged her son. Dante whispered, "Mom, she dances like a dream." Evelyn smiled. "Greater than, no, tonight, you were the one who taught us how to dance." From that night onward, Marjorie no longer stood in the shadows. Dante grew up believing places of greatness belonged to him, too. And CEO Evelyn Brooks continued her mission, not just to build a company, but to honor the forgotten hands that keep it standing. Because sometimes, a child's courage can restore an adult's memories. And sometimes, dignity walks into the ballroom, wearing an apron.